Good afternoon, everyone. So, similar to yours, I started off studying economics at a university a couple of kilometers from here, so an old one. And I was around the same age, in my early 20s, trying to figure out where I'm going to live or work things in the city. And I moved from Vancouver, which is kind of slightly more expensive than Toronto, and the challenges arrived maybe 5 or 10 years earlier. This housing situation that we're feeling here is basically a housing crisis. The prices that you're seeing here have little relation to what you'll make. They have a lot to do with how much wealth you have. The prices are going up, the density is getting tighter, and the idea of owning something on land is just disappearing. So Tiny Toronto has been focusing on the effects of this challenge. You're forced to experience really long wait lists for quality housing, or you're forced to go to the edge of the city and have a really long commute. Or if you do find housing in the core of the city, it's really substandard and of poor quality, and still charges you a great deal of money. So what we're suggesting is a spectrum of housing that would spread in different sized backyards. And we're really lucky that we have Rover ahead of us talking about parking, because that is the single biggest issue on what allows a house to be built in somebody's backyard. They want to know where will the occupants be moving about and how. So this kind of shows what are the different housing sizes that could go in different sizes of backyards. And on the next slide, it'll show you the neighborhoods they can go into. So this identifies the 416 area. And as you might notice, the red zone includes the west end, the east end, and the core of the city. And this neighborhood has really tight lots. And maybe the only thing that can go in there is potentially a small studio shed. And I just want to show of hands how many people live in the green area that would include Scarborough, Etobicoke, and North York. It's a good amount of people. And how many people live in the 905? So that has a pretty similar dynamic to the green area, where there's a lot of possibilities of having a 1-story, 1.5-story, and a 2-story house in a backyard. And these are sizes that are a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or a studio shed. And what's happened in the city is there's a consultation going on right now, and that's focused on the red area I showed you earlier. And that focuses where the laneway houses are. And this company, Lanescape, is currently doing that. And how it's described here, that instead of living in a basement, you create a dwelling in the backyard. And an alternate to that is there's a rural company that's making these bunkies that'll go on farm space. And Tiny Toronto is really focused on, as I showed you earlier, the 3 different models, focused in the middle of the city. And that also engages the bunker belt, that was kind of the green mark that you saw on that map earlier. And what this can do for us in the city is that it can add a lot of rental stock. You have diversity in options, so instead of just being able to rent a condo or a basement or just have fewer options, you have a third option. You'd be able to rent a granny flat or a garden suite. And the same thing has a lot of benefits outside the city because you can create home ownership models, and it has a lot of benefits generally for the society from environmental and economic perspective. We've been really fortunate to come across to a lot of help within the city. Mars kind of got us the financial modeling for the Center for Impact Investing on how this could work and what the market size is. We had some help with Steam Labs and CSI prototyping our first models. And now we're in the design fabrication zone looking to prototype the initial models this year. And in terms of the customer base, there's 2 demographics that are really interesting. There are the 20-year-olds that are living longer single in this generation, and you have people later in their life, in their 80s, that are living longer single. And this has happened because we just got this endowment of greater quality of life. And how we choose to house ourselves in those periods is kind of an interesting dilemma. What we have noticed is that there are people that are aging in place, they might be retired from their job and losing their salary. So they're considering of building a suite in their backyard to replace their income. But they may not want to live in it themselves. What they're eyeing is somebody like you, who's a young professional, who's looking for a brand new build space that's of high quality and might want to rent from them. So between connecting those two groups, it's a great possibility of creating a really sustainable neighborhood, especially with car sharing, land sharing, and other cost-effective methods. Here's some stats on the numbers, like what would the cost of these dwellings be, what might they rent for, and most importantly, I guess the rent is kind of cut off the last line, but there are more than 100,000 backyards that we've identified in the 416 area. And to put that in perspective, there's 1 million households in Toronto, so 100,000 would be an increase of 10% in housing stock. And in economics, if you can increase the supply by 10%, that should have a pretty material effect on what rent and prices we have to pay. This is Sue of our team. Mary's right here. She's our designer. Martin's not on there, but he's our urban planner visiting from Australia. And we have a couple of engineers. Jacob's our main architect, and Elena and Andy are students right here at Ryerson helping us. There's also a couple of people I want to mention. They'll be coming in later today observing your pitches. There is Kelsey. She's a U of T master's student in planning, and she's doing her research paper on how these tiny houses would go into the city of Toronto. And that paper is going to be prepared for March and presented sometime in May. So that's quite a bit of an attraction. And there's also Morgan Pierce, who's part of the Institute of New Suburbanism, that's rethinking how the suburbs will become walkable and accessible the way the young generation desires it to be. I'm going to pass on the stage to Mary, who's going to explain the case competition to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mary, and as you heard my background, I'm a designer at Toronto, and I just graduated from Vocab University, the program in environmental design. And with the introduction of such a housing spectrum in Toronto, in the suburbs of Toronto, I just want to lead you guys to this slide over here. We're asking you guys as Toronto. I get a little bit nervous sometimes. So just let me refresh. Everyone shake a bit if you want. Yeah, shake a bit. All right. So Tiny Toronto is actually asking you guys of a parking solution for our housing stock. So because living in backyards is actually not legal just yet, we're working with policymakers in Toronto and seeing where Toronto can move with these housing spectrum. But we're asking what you guys are thinking about different models of how people will get around the suburbs without owning a car. So microtransit is actually a terminology that's been prevalent in the United States and other large cities in the world. And it's essentially where private and public sector transportation services combine together to create dynamic routes for consumer demand. And companies obviously like Uber and Rover here kind of touch on those things. There's many things like carpooling apps. So we've listed in our case competition a few companies of interest. And also, side note, Uber does release their statistics of how people get around in the city. So it's called Uber Movement. And thinking about how with all of these companies that are popping up, they actually are more downtown centric. So because people actually, when they, like you guys, a lot of you guys actually live in the suburbs, we all are focused on getting down to the core, or down to Toronto. And since all the companies are downtown centric, how are we going to use them? How are they going to grow in a suburban model? And so, yep, that's what we're asking. Thank you. And I'm moving it on to Marvin.
Hey, I'm Marvin Wright. I'm fresh off the plane. You've noticed my name's not even up on the slide yet. I'm from the Gold Coast, Australia. I'm actually one of you guys. I'm still studying. I'm an urban environmental planning student from the Gold Coast. And I'm actually basically up here right now because I'm living the lifestyle they're trying to promote. I live 50 minutes away from my university, 50 minutes away from anywhere I could walk. I pay $100-something per week rent, and I live in Granny Flat in the back. In fact, it's that easy back home to build one of these. You can get one of these approved in between 10 to 20 days, providing you're within the parameter. It's that easy. What's holding back Toronto is parking issues. So we want to ask you guys to come up with any type of solution, microtransit, ride sharing, to alleviate these problems in order to make the suburbs a more livable place. Because a lot of you guys live in the suburbs. Do you enjoy getting here? Like, how was your day here? It sucks? Yeah. Cool. Help us find some solutions and make your lives easier. If you guys want to speak one-on-one, and to anyone on the team, just come to us after this. So I think for now we're going to have questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. John and his team, we really appreciated your talk about what Chinese Toronto does. And as our mentor, we're going to open up the floor for questions.